political issues of the day, but he's transactional and sees the Qataris as someone who wants to have a relationship with. We know that from his trip overseas and from the statement, at least, that's been put out today. He's not happy with what the Israelis did. What do you think's next?
And while he has been fairly clearly pro-Israel since the campaign trail, I think pro-Israel groups and pro-Palestine groups are very frustrated by him because he does use this information advantage that the White House has to sort of muddy the waters and say, I didn't tell them to do it, but I did know about it. And frankly, because of the national security nature of the issue, we may not know who knew what when.
Yeah, Netanyahu put a bunch of statements out, even when he spoke, Kurt. He said, we acted independently, and then Trump came out and basically said, this wasn't me, so that we know where both players are trying to position themselves. What do you think today means?
Well, I mean, the last thing that the United States wants to see is, violence spill out into, Qatar. This is a place that we have seen try to actually become more mainstream over the years. Recently, they held a live event for WWE in Qatar. And so this is not the image that they want to have associated with their country. And it makes sense that the president, while trying to convince the world that he has a handle on these conflicts and that is steering them towards resolution, has been one of the big promises he made in the run-up to the campaign when he got reelected. These types of images doesn't really make you feel like, like the president's got full control over the situation and that we're anywhere near a peaceful resolution.
I said we move on to other political issues.
Quickly,
of course,
though,
Lauren. Yeah, go ahead.
I think, and Kurt might even agree with me on this. I think this is why it's confusing when some Democrats say what they would have preferred Israel to do is highly targeted attacks on Hamas. And that appears to be what the goal was here. And so if Democrats say this is not what we want either, and I know that's not what you're saying, Kurt, I do think this is where it gets very difficult, is Israel is doing the sorts of attacks that they have been told to do, but everyone is sort of saying, does this fall under that category or not? Yeah.
Well, the where would be the question. You want to say something about that, Kurt,
yes.
In this before we move on?
Yeah, I just think that in general, anytime that the President of the United States acts as if he is blindsided and unhappy with an attack, it kind of sends a signal to me, at least, that even if we want targeted attacks, which I agree that we do, this was not the way to go about doing that.
Right. And, that's the signal he's sending. And again, we'll see whether he speaks about it later or not. Now, I said we're going to move on to other issues. I know this is the last one that the White House wants to talk about, is this Jeffrey Epstein stuff. But it hasn't gone away because of the Democrats in the Oversight Committee putting out that drawing, the alleged birthday card that the president supposedly signed. Still says he didn't do it. And Caroline Leavitt, or didn't sign it, it wasn't his signature, spoke about it at the briefing today. And here's what Caroline said.
Sure, we would support that. And in fact, I have already seen many forensic analysts of signatures coming out. I believe it was the Daily Signal that published a piece with 3 separate signature analysts who said that this absolutely was not the president's authentic signature. And we have maintained that position all along. The president did not write this letter. He did not sign this letter. And that's why the president's external legal team is aggressively pursuing litigation against the Wall Street Journal.
I don't know, Kurt, if you know any autograph experts, but apparently the White House is open to having one look at this.
I mean, this is just ridiculous at this point. First of all, let's be clear. It was the Republican-controlled Oversight Committee that issued the subpoena to the Epstein estate. This is why these documents have come to light and been produced. So this is not a Democrat-driven anything. It's the House majority Republicans on the Oversight Committee. Number 2, I've seen all over social media a number of signatures popping up from handwritten notes that Donald Trump has sent over the years that match that one. Third of all, first they said this didn't exist in the first place. Now they're saying, well, it wasn't him that signed it. Someone's going to have to explain to me why the Epstein estate in 2 decades ago created a fake birthday card list that included Donald Trump, because that's where this came from. It came from the Epstein estate. Didn't come from Democrats, didn't come from Democrat-aligned interests or a super PAC or opposition research. It came from an estate. So you're telling me that this has been sitting there for 20 years and it's been fake the whole time? That doesn't add up either.
If you want a funny story, this is somewhat related, but not really. Years ago, the president was clearly a bigger fan of somebody I was co-anchoring a show with, because he took a screen grab like this of the 3 of us. It was just the 2 of us, and he sent it to this co-anchor of mine, and he signed it right over my face so that my face couldn't even be seen. So that's a true story. Nothing to do with this one, but made me think of it.
That's
Lauren,
a great anecdote,
I think it's Thanks. I think it's what's interesting about this to me. There's a couple of things about it, but one of the things is Kurt's right. Republicans brought this up, and before they pushed it, okay. But now it's interesting. The base of this president, usually, if he says, you know, jump, they say how high, or if he says I didn't do it, that's fine. Like the idea that he's going to be in some sort of political trouble over this, also with his base at least, seems far-fetched to me as well. I think they'll probably just want to move on, just like he does. What do you think?
I do think we might be getting to the end of this. I mean, leave the note aside, which is obviously very creepy and disturbing. We know Trump was friends with this person. He's a convicted sex offender and sex trafficker. That is not good, no matter how you slice it. The pictures, to me, are just as damaging as some note that we don't know how to read into. But I don't know whether the MAGA base or the Democrats, I don't know if they're going to find what they're searching for, and I don't really know where we're going to go from here. He was friends with someone who was an extraordinarily bad person, and a lot of people want to get to the bottom of that. But as far as the political implications, I really don't know. I think that most of what's out there is sort of out there, and I'm all for transparency, but curious to see what Kurt thinks.
Well, what do you think, Kurt, about that, the political risk for the president now, present day?
I mean, I think that the question really will be, what does he do with this lawsuit he has against the Wall Street Journal? Because that's what keeps it alive. Ultimately, there's going to be, discovery. There's going to be testimony. People will be sworn in to have to talk about this. And that's where the rubber meets the road. It's one thing to say something publicly. We see the president, White House politicians mislead people all the time, frankly, because there's no penalty. It's another thing when you're under oath and there is the stakes are much higher. Is he going to continue this war against a Rupert Murdoch-owned publication or not? That's what I'm interested to see.
Yeah, it's an interesting lawsuit now when you have the actual birthday card, with the signature, and your defense is that it's not your signature. So that's why the forensic expert thing, or autograph expert, came up. All right, we'll see where it goes. Now, one more topic for you guys before we go, and this time I'll start with you, Kurt, because I want to talk about the Democrats. Everybody's been focused on, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, getting so much attention for kind of controlling Trump. Now there seems to be some speculation that maybe J.B. Pritzker in Illinois is pulling the attention away to some extent, helping himself politically with all this business back and forth about the National Guard and what have you in Chicago. Is it working? Here's Pritzker. Let's listen to him, then we'll come back and talk about it.
From what Donald Trump is trying to do, which is to disrupt the country, not because he's going after criminals, but because he has a nefarious plan, frankly, to bring military into cities so that ultimately in the 2026 election, people will be normalized to the idea of militarization during the next election.
So Pritzker's argument there is that Trump is trying to sway things for the midterms. One of my questions for you, Kurt, is whether Pritzker, with all of this, is helping himself for the election after that in 28. What do you think?
He is, and I think what you're going to see between now and really the presidential primary calendar officially kicking into high gear after the midterms is each one of these figures will have their moment in the sun to go one-on-one with Donald Trump. And during that time, they will elevate. They will become more widely known. They will become widely known on a much more national level, which most of these people aren't there quite yet. And they will benefit from any fight with Donald Trump. Donald Trump oftentimes aids them in that. When he starts calling you out, when the most powerful person in the world is fighting with you, I always say, punch up, don't punch down. Trump loves punching down, and in doing so, he only serves to elevate you. It's why there are so many books during Trump 1 that became bestsellers, because Trump would talk about it all the time. Sales would go up, they would become famous, and life would go on. That's the same thing you're going to see with the Democratic primary.
Yeah, he can elevate opponents. This wouldn't be an opponent because he can't run again, but to me, that's what he's doing with Mamdani in New York a lot, because he wants to go after him. So he's elevating him and putting him in the spotlight. What do you make of what's going on, though, with the Democrats and their presidential ambitions with all this crime back and forth, Lauren?
I can't wait to see that primary. I mean, they are going to rip each other apart. I can tell you the things wrong with each of them. But for Pritzker, he's less popular in his state than Trump is. The majority of people think the taxes are too high. Right. He's a billionaire. He bragged about that on the DNC stage in a party that says billionaires shouldn't exist. I mean, all of these things are huge problems within the party, not even withstanding how you get to the Republican stage in a general environment.
For the record, if I'm ever a billionaire, I'm going to brag about it too. But go ahead, Kurt.
I'll say, if anything that we have learned over time, it's whoever's having their moment in the sun today probably isn't going to be the nominee
No
in 2 or
chance.
3 years.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Bet on whoever we're not talking about. All right, guys. Good discussion on all these issues, some more important than others, right? Kurt Bardella and Lauren Wright, you guys are great. All right.